Do I look slim? I'm wearing black because black is slimming. Hey, welcome to OnSet. I am Daniel Norton, and today we're going to talk about flash photography. We're going to kind of talk about some of the basics of it. I know sometimes we jump right into these and start shooting, and maybe some of the tech stuff slips away to people, so I'm going to kind of walk through this a little bit at a time. Please ask questions so I can make sure everything's clear, so that when we get to the next demo and it's all complicated, you'll already know how to do it. So, got Seth over here in the Mighty Mix. Marissa's on her way. But until then, let's just take a we're quickly talk about flash. This is true. I'm not even making that up. So, effectively, when we're working with, sorry. I always say that when you're a photographer, right, because people always ask me, like, hey, why not use constant lights, or why not use natural light or daylight or whatever, right? The sun is the best light. You know, ultimately, as photographers, we want control, and flash gives us the most control, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, mostly, and then we'll talk some of the technical stuff. But basically, when we want to light our subjects up, we want to make sure that we can completely control our space, and we can put in any light we want. Which means that if we decide we want to use some, and Marissa's here, woo! Which means that if we want to use some of the window light, or we want to use some constant light, or an LED or whatever, we can do that, but we make that decision. If I was here earlier, it was a bright sunny day in New York, right? It was a bright sunny day earlier. It was bright and sunny. Well, cloudy, partly cloudy. It was bright and sunny in New York, and I have this awesome ring light. Right? This is my color ring light, and it would be fine to use it as a fill in that situation, but I couldn't overpower it. I couldn't just light up Marissa or myself with this ring light when the sun's coming through the window. It's not going to be strong enough. In order to have a light that's a constant light that's powerful enough to do that, it's going to be very, very expensive, very hot, draw a lot of power, but yet, I use the word yet, I don't know where it went, yet the tiniest flash can do just that, right? We can use a small flash, we can control our space. So let's use that. I'll take some portraits, of course, because that's why we're here. Always, right? Marissa needs a new headshot every day. So I'm just going to keep everything real simple, and we'll walk through some of the gear. But like I said, just if you have questions, and we'll try some stuff as usual. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Oh, and by the way, this is going to be every week now, right? So I think Gavin's here next week. So every Thursday, we're going to have streaming, slightly different times, though. Because he's across the pond. He's 2 Eastern time. So, yeah. What's that? Move the ring light. I'm about to do that, actually. All right, so let's start with the ring light. If we here we are, we have the lights on, you guys can see. If I take my ring light and I place it, and I'm going to light Marissa, I know I can put it between the camera, but I don't want to. Turn it on. It is battery powered. Look how beautiful that is. Dun, dun. Okay, we're going to crank it. All right, all the ways up, because we don't want to, all right, boom. Okay, we've got this all the ways up. Oh, that's how much time is left on the battery. That's nice. And we can look through the camera. And let's get ourselves set up with a constant light. Here we are in New, what's that? No, let's leave them on, because I want to come. It's all blown out. Oh, really? Oh, you're all blown out, Marissa. Oh, no. Turn those off. It's still going to be blown, no?
It looks a lot better.
Okay, there we go. Looks better. All right, so we're going to turn that on. I have my flash turned off. I'm going to set my camera. I mean, this is pretty simple, right? I'm just going to come in. I guess I could zoom the lens. And I'm got a mirrorless camera. I'm just going to adjust my camera settings until I can properly see Marissa. I'm at 100 ISO right now. I'm going to go to, let's say, 400, 200th of a second. I'll go to 125. I'm trying to find, we're balancing this, right? So I'm at f4, 125. It's still a smidge dark, so I'm going to go up to 640 ISO. Boom, take a shot. And that looks pretty good, right? Constant light, it's all good. She looks good. I'm 1/125th of a second, so it's going to freeze the action. I'm at 640 ISO, and with the modern camera, that's pretty good, right? And you might be like, well, there you go, Daniel. You don't need no flash. All of a sudden, I'm Southern. It's like a Southern thing. So my apology to people from the South. So I was watching a movie last night that was it was Western. I'm not even making that up. I really was. That was last night, right? No, it was the night before. Okay, so there we go. That's pretty good, right? here we are. We're able to shoot. Well.
There's a question.
Okay.
Do you have your stabilization on or off while you're on tripod?
Do I have my stabilization on or off when I'm on the tripod? I have it on because,
Good eye. Hit the eye menu.
yeah.
And it'll tell you.
Yep. I have it on. I always leave it on. I always leave my stabilization on because I never know when I'm going to spontaneously jump off the tripod and use it. Right? Okay, so. Okay, so if I take my flash, so this is actually a, you probably can't see me now, right? Am I dark?
No, I think you're good.
Okay. This is a Profoto A10, which is 9 better than the A1 that I had before. Small flash, right? I put it in my pocket.
Cool.
Nice.
Did you put a link to the ring light in the video?
I did not put a link to the ring light because I thought of it right before we started. It is the Savage Rainbow Ring Light. It is pretty awesome. Highly recommended. All right, so thank you, Seth. Small flash. Small flash. This is the first flash that I generally say people should get if they're going to get a flash because it will fit on the top of your camera. It will, give you a decent amount of light, and it is, generally affordable compared to other flashes. This Profoto one is obviously premium, so keep that in mind. But if you were to get, if you're on a lower budget, there's other brands. But effectively, a small flash is still, this little tiny thing is still going to be able to give us much more light than that rainbow flash. Rainbow ring light. And it's going to allow us to control the space. So we'll come in here. You know what I'm going to do? I was going to shoot through the softbox and be all fancy, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to put it on top of the camera, because you know why?
So,
It's an on-camera flash. Let's start that way. So we're going to put it on top of the camera.
What's the difference between the A1 and A10?
So the difference between the A1 and the A10 is the A10 is 9 better. Did I already make that joke? I think I did. There we go. The A10 is just the newest version. It's got a different, the battery is different, lasts longer. It's got a brighter modeling light.
It's got Bluetooth.
Bluetooth is built in, which so did the A1.
No, the A1 original didn't.
A1 original did not. I had A1Xs before, I guess.
It has a stiffer bounce.
Oh, right, it's got the Bluetooth, and the mount here is stiffer. So the Bluetooth allows you to work with the little app and that little dongle thing that goes on top of the camera. All right, which I do not know the name of. Do you know what that's called? The little circle thing, the Bluetooth one?
Oh, the Profoto Connect.
Connect. Yep. Thank you, Seth. All right. So, anyways, I've got it in TTL, which means through the lens metering. And what I'm going to do is, in order to get rid of this ring light, I'm going to go back to my camera settings, and I'm going to drop my ISO back down to 100. I'm going to bring my f-stop up to, let's say, I don't know, 6.3. I'll bring the shutter to 200 because that's my sync speed. I'm going to use the special technique that Seth showed me to press the button on the side of the camera so I can see what it looks like. It looks pretty black to me. I'll take a shot. And now we've got a flash photo, right? The flash has overcome the other light. Now, if you don't believe me, if you're like, Daniel, that's not true. The flash didn't overcome that light. You're making that up. Well, if I turn the flash off, right? And we can barely see there. So ring light, right? Camera set, 640, right? 125 shutter speed, f4. Here I've got the flash with 100 ISO, so my best ISO, a 200th of a second, 6.3, and you can see what it would look like without the flash. So we have power to overcome even a bright light that's shining on somebody, a light that we could easily shoot a portrait with. We're able to overcome it with the flash. The flash is powerful, and we can mix them together. In fact, I think that was my last demo. So by having this power in your pocket, literally, you can come into a space and you can control the space. And if photographers or anything, we are control freaks. We're also sometimes trendy with TikTok, and you don't stop.
Not trendy, Daniel.
You TikTok. I TikTok and I don't stop. Tick, tick. All right, so now this is a small flash. Before we get into anything else, I'm just going to kind of talk about a few other things here. I mentioned TTL. So TTL means through the lens. And what that is it's a metering system. And what that does is it uses your camera's meter, okay, to communicate with the flash to give it the proper exposure.
Whoa.
Oh, is that not true? We lost the signal.
You might still be live, but I got nothing.
I might still be live, but we have nothing. What do you mean? The iPad went down? Oh.
Is it dead? Is it plugged in?
What, the iPad?
No, the sling.
Oh. Yeah, of course. The sling's on and has a battery backup.
I don't know if we're live or not.
Is this live or is this Memorex?
Now you're back up.
Okay, we're back. We had a slight goof in the system. Sling Studio, if you're watching, send us a new thing. Okay, so anyways, TTL. A lot of times people will be like, I don't use TTL. I use a meter. Guess what? If you're using TTL, you are using a meter. You're using the meter that's in the camera. And since most of us, when we start shooting, learn how to get our exposure by using the meter in the camera, TTL is a very useful tool. If it's not giving you the exact exposure you want, it just requires some adjustment. And we'll talk about that as we go. There is another way to shoot, obviously. You could shoot a flash that's manual, that doesn't have TTL. And in order to do that, what we're gonna do is maybe either possibly use a light meter, because again, unlike the daylight or this constant light, we don't know what our exposure is just by looking at it. So that is a little bit of a learning curve for flash. We're gonna have to figure out our exposure. So we're gonna do that now. We're gonna switch over and use a light meter. I'm gonna take my flash and put it back on top of the camera. I'm gonna switch it to manual mode. I think we've shown that what this does, so we can probably kill this. We can turn back on the overheads and things. Thank you, Seth. Yeah. By the way, this rainbow ring light rather is pretty awesome. It's not a flash, it's a ring light. All right, so we don't know what our exposure should be to get what we want, right? Here we are, we're gonna think about the camera, and we're gonna say, we wanna get it so that we have control of the space. So we're gonna set our camera, boy, this is almost like the thing I do every single video. We're gonna set our camera in such a way that none of the light in the space is going to affect our shot. So the simple way to do that, if you're using a mirrorless camera or a camera that has a live view, is to just look through the back of the camera and adjust your settings until it's dark. Now, you wanna set your ISO at the lowest within its normal range. You don't wanna go to like those extended ISOs necessarily. So 100 is the case here. 200th of a second is the sync speed I like to shoot at. I believe this camera will sync at 250, but I feel comfortable at 200. It's a nice round number. I could show the live view. I'm gonna do it. Look at that. So I'm in capture one and I'm hitting the live view and there you go. It's awesome. Here, I'll make adjustments so you guys can see. So obviously we know it's already dark, but for instance, let's say I walked into this room and I was like, you know, because I'm a cool guy. So, you know, as a cool guy, I'm usually shooting like a 2000 ISO at 4 at the widest open setting. I got my f1.2 lenses and I'm walking around being all cool. So I'm wide open when I walk in here. And look, this light is lovely. It's not really. No offense, big box hardware store, but your LED bulbs for the ceiling, bleh. So this is terrible. We want to get rid of this light. So I'm gonna go, oh man, but I always shoot at auto ISO. Let me turn that off and bring it down to 100 because Daniel said I should. And if there's a reason to do anything in life, it's because Daniel said I should. Now I could still, now we're looking and that's pretty black. I could shoot it at 4, but do I care if the plain background is in focus? Do I care about the bokeh of the background? I don't care about that. So I'm gonna actually close down a bit because I wanna be safe that she's gonna be in focus. And I'm gonna go to 5.6 because I once read 5.6 and be there. Actually, I read F8 and be there, but it just kind of wore out a little bit. And now there's only 5.6 left. So with that being said, I shoot a frame. It's gonna be a black frame, as we can already tell. I'm working on my stand-up comedy routine for TikTok. So let me know if any of these are funny. Probably not.
The funniest thing you said was, I'm a cool guy.
Wow. Marissa is dropping the shade here. Would you like to take over? Actually, I'm not gonna let her take over because she would. All right, so now we have our camera set so that the room is dark. We got rid of this ugly light that's here. I'll turn our flash on. Now, since I have no idea what the exposure should be, in theory, right? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at my flash and I'm gonna put it somewhere in the middle. Now, your flash might be like mine, where it has these numbers on the back. This Profoto flash goes from 1 to 10, does not go to 11. It does not go to 11. But you might have a flash that's like full power, half power, quarter power, eighth power, 16th power, 32nd power, 64th power. That's where you usually want to be, right? 128th power. You want to be the middle of that, right? Not half power, but the middle of your range, right? That way you have room to move. And then what we're simply going to do is, if you didn't have a meter, we'll do it that way first because, hey, you know what? I'm standing here. We take a picture. Oh yeah, perfect. Now we can look at this and go, that's too dark, right? It's too dark. If you're in Capture One like I am, I don't know why you'd be in Capture One and sitting here and not have TTL or light meter, but let's just say that you are. I'll grab my exposure slider and I'll bring it over until it looks proper, which is about right there. And we're about 1.65 stops too dark. So I'm going to turn my flash up to 6, 2, which is also exactly how tall set this. Look at that. I don't know. I say random things.
Well, it was to my back.
All right. Now again, we have a proper exposure. And I didn't use a meter, nor did I use TTL. But let's use a meter. Let me show you how you would do that. If you have a light meter,
What is this ancient device?
let's randomly spin this around to some number that we don't know. Okay.
The price is right.
The price is right. And then I'm just going to go and okay.
Just switch to the overhead.
Okay. All right, 2.2. So this is too low, so I'm going to turn my power up. I'll do some math. So that's about 2.8. So we're going to go about 2 stops, which brings us to 6.1. Oh, let's see.
Oh, says height goes back.
Yeah, okay. Nope, my metering must have been off. Okay, so 6.2. Then we go like this. Boom, we take a shot. I know it's going to be the same, obviously, because the metering is the same. Okay, so you can do it any of those ways. TTL, guess,
Yeah.
meter, right? Advantages of each. TTL, you're running around. Let's say you're doing an event. I'm shooting a picture over here. I'm shooting a picture over there. I'm shooting a picture over there. It's fast. It's always going to give me a good exposure, right? Really quick. We're moving around. Guess,
Fun.
you can look silly in front of your client, right? Or maybe fun, right?
Fun.
That is the, oh no, I should have done this ahead of time. The real thing about a meter that makes a light meter great for flash photography is that if Marissa wasn't here yet, like if she was like, Daniel, you know I'm a superstar. I only have 2 minutes. I can get this all set up and I can meter everything so I know when she steps there, it's perfect exposure. Then when she sees that, she's going to go, oh man, you know what? The last photographer that photographed me had to guess. I'll stay extra time for you.
5 minutes for you.
What advice do you have for getting exposure right in the camera like the film is?
All of this is the right exposure. What advice to get it? Yeah, you want to get your exposure as close as possible in the camera, if not perfect, because it's just going to be better for you. The client's going to see it. The images are going to look perfect. You won't have to tweak them too much. The cameras, we talked about this actually. We talked about this in the mentoring Marissa. The camera has its processor, right? So yeah, I could go in here and give it 2 stops in post. It would work. It would be fine. It's not going to be as good as the camera doing it, right? So we want to get as close as possible. The real trick to that is to ideally be tethered. If you're not tethered, you need to learn the back of your screen, because histograms are only going to tell you so much. You have to know by looking at the image what it's going to look like. Like, this computer is not my final editing computer. I know that I'm going to edit on a different computer, so I'm used to what this should look like when I'm making my exposure. That's what you got to do. Yep.
How do you feel using a gray card to get exposure settings?
Okay, so a gray card, this is a good question. A lot of people say use a gray card to get exposure, and they are correct. A lot of people also say use a gray card to get white balance, and they might be correct. You need to use a neutral or a white balance card for white balance, but for exposure, you use a gray card or a 18% gray card to be more precise. Would usually use that with a reflected meter. So in other words, if you didn't have a mirrorless camera and couldn't just see it, you would fill the frame with the gray, or you could do it if the subject wasn't there. You would fill the frame with the gray card, you move it up and down until the meter goes into the center, because you got a little meter in your camera. That's all it is with the gray card. It would work. You could do that. You can also do it if you just want to know it's accurate. You can use TTL that way. Yeah, I mean, I don't think people use them as much with digital cameras because you can literally just see the exposure, you know. Seems less common.
I have 2 more questions.
Okay.
Do you calibrate your screen? If so, what do you use and how often?
Do I calibrate my screen? No, my screen is, I have done it before, but it always doesn't make any tweak. I have a MacBook, it does a good job as itself.
And could you use a histogram to guess?
The problem with the histogram is that, let's take a quick look, because I'm glad somebody asked that question. Oh, I'm sorry. Do I calibrate the color on my monitor? No, not really, not on this one, because it's a MacBook Pro and they do pretty good at doing its thing. If you calibrate it, there's like a max standard that I use and it works really well. I think the color's accurate. What's important is when you export the files that you attach to them, Photoshop is always like, do you want to attach this thing to it? You want to either attach the proper color that you have predetermined on your monitor to the file, or you want to send it, if you're sending it to like somebody to put it on Instagram, sRGB. I know we photographers, we walk around, we're like, Adobe RGB, yo, Adobe RGB. You'll be happier if you do sRGB. Just trust me on that one. What was the other question?
Could you use a histogram?
Histogram. Perfect. Could use a histogram to guess. Well, that is a good question. Let's take a look at this histogram, shall we?
We got more questions.
Oh, there's another question.
I'll just keep going.
All right, so here's my histogram over here, right? How does that look to you? Right? I think most people will look at the histogram and be like, that's way too dark, but her skin tone is perfect to me. Now, what you can do is, if you're in something like Capture One, you see how there's like a little orange line going back and forth? That is basically measuring the different areas, so you can use it, on a camera, I wouldn't use it so much. In something like this I will, because I know that Marissa's skin tone should be right around where it is, like right around there is her skin tone. So, because I know that, because I've shot her a bunch of times, because I can see it, I know that's accurate. Unless you know that, I don't think the histogram is that useful. Most people are gonna look at this and go, oh, well, that's way too dark. And then, oh, let's bring it up so everything's more in the middle. And that is gonna be way overexposed. So be wary of the histogram, be wary of what's in the histogram. If you're gonna use it for your exposure, use a gray card, right? That's when you'd use the gray card, because you know where that should fall, if that makes sense. Yep.
Why'd you meter from her chin area? Why was that where you picked up the light meter, basically? And if you can't afford a light meter, how else could you do it? Is the light meter a luxury or a must?
Am I blocking the camera? I have to have a drink.
No, let's just drink when I wait for your answer.
I'm sorry, I needed to talk and I needed to drink, and Seth won't let me show that cup because it's not a sponsored item. Just kidding.
This is why I get all the hate comments.
This is why everybody hates. I'm just kidding. Seth would be fine with me showing the cup. All right, anyways.
What was the question?
What was the question?
One, why did you pick her chin as the area?
Okay, so why did I put the chin? Okay, so because what's the most important thing in the shot as far as getting the exposure correct? Her face. I'm not going to put it in her eyeball, right? I mean, I guess you could put it on her forehead. I got used to putting it on the chin because typically, right now the light's kind of just right at the camera, which is kind of a terrible place for it to be. Normally, if you're metering somebody and your light is, let's say, the softbox, it's going to be slightly higher than somebody. So if you put it at the forehead, what ends up happening is the forehead is correctly exposed and the rest of the face gets dark, because you're metering there. So I usually tend to put it in the middle of the face, and I don't want to put it in her eye. So the chin is a good spot. That's the reason why I do that. It's not really any kind of any science there. It's just what I got used to.
How else could you do besides a light meter? Is it a luxury or a must?
If you don't have a light meter, then you could either use TTL if your flash provides it, or you could do the guess method that I showed you, which works. I mean, we got it within a couple of shots, right? If I wasn't using Capture One with the guess method, I probably would have taken me maybe 2 more shots. It's not ideal if you have a client, but you can do it. I would use TTL if you don't have a light meter. Is it necessary? For a professional, I think it's useful to have, yes. If you're a professional that shoots in the studio, that kind of stuff, I definitely would try to invest in it at some point. Is it the first thing I'd buy? Probably not. You could get a PhotoVision digital target, which is also very useful. I would get that over a gray card, to be honest with you. You hold it in front of the subject. It's white, it's gray, it's black. you get a histogram. I would get it, but that would require me going into the closet and, you know, I'm often running off the set and then I, you know.
White card versus gray card.
White card versus gray card.
White balance versus exposure. The whole thing.
Okay, so most people using white cards, you may have seen that before if you shoot film. Because movie cameras are designed to use a white card for their balance. And you use the white card to get your exposure because they're just calibrated differently. I'm not a filmmaker at that level, so I don't want to get into the whole thing, but they make what they call white cards and they come in different shades. Some of them are more bluish, some of them are warmer, and you use different ones to help set the white balance. That's for movie cameras generally. That's, you know, if you're not shooting RAW or whatever, maybe even if you are shooting RAW. Again, not my thing. We need Fernando. Fernando! But, or Dave. But as far as white balance versus exposure, a lot of times people will go to a store, let's say Adorama, I hope, and they're like, huh, man, I need a card for my white balance. And they'll look at the wall and they'll see like a PhotoVision digital target or like a Lasolite white balance card, and they're like $40. And then next to it, hanging there, will be this gray card that's like $2.49. And they'll be like, the gray card that's $2.49 typically is for exposure only. It's 18% gray, it is not neutral. Be wary, make sure it says white balance card or color balance, not exposure. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
First of all, half of this stuff, once you start going, we'll get answered, but the last one I'm going to give you, and let's get going.
And then we're going to
just talk about flash sync, because someone's confused as to why that's 1/200th of a second, and they like 32,000th, they don't understand.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's talk about flash sync as we go through this, because I'm going to get into things like high-speed sync. Okay, so every camera, we're going to go back to flash sync for flash again. Every camera has a sync speed to which the camera syncs, an X sync speed. Most flashes, unless they are capable of high-speed sync, not every flash is, most flashes, unless they are capable of high-speed sync, I'm going to say it again because I can tell people are going to tell me right now. I'll say it one more time. Unless they are capable of high-speed sync. So if I take my Profoto Acute pack that I have up there with my ring flash and I go to plug that in, I will need to shoot at 200th of a second. Even if the camera has high-speed sync ability, the flash also has to have it. It's part of the system, right? So basically, that is what you use that sync for. If you have high-speed sync capable flashes, like I do, then you can basically go into what's called high-speed sync. What that does is effectively it pulses the flash multiple times, allowing you to use a faster shutter speed. Now, why would we use that? I know, because you're cool, but that's not the real reason. The reason you want to use that is because if you are in a bright space and you are shooting wide open, because you're cool, you know, then you need a faster shutter speed or else the ambient light will affect your shot. So let's say I'm outside. I'm in a, where would I be? In a veranda?
Yes.
I'm in a veranda.
Right.
And here I am in the veranda, and it's nice, and I've got my 400mm 2.8 that just came out, and which I don't have, but if you want to send me one, right? And there I am, and I'm going to shoot. I'm like, I want to shoot at 2.8 because
I'm cool.
I'm cool. Boom, 2.8. I set my my ISO at 100 because it's a bright day outside, and I look at the thing and I go, oh, 200th of a second. I take a picture and it is blown out. Why? Because I'm outside, and at 2.8 outside, it's not, 200th of a second is going to be way too bright. So I'm like, well, I got to go to 7,000 of a second or whatever you're going to do, 3,200th of a second. You can crank your shutter speed to that, and the flash will still sync if you have high-speed sync. However, this does eat power in a certain way. And what ends up happening is you never have more exposure than you would have, I guess. So that's the thing. It's not like if you were shooting now at, you're like, oh, I'm shooting at 2.8 with this flash. If I shoot at 2.8 with this flash, it might be at, 30% power. But if I'm doing high-speed sync, shooting 2.8 at 3,200th of a second, it's probably going to be at like full power because that's just how it works. So it doesn't steal you any extra power. It sometimes is less consistent color-wise. It oftentimes is more blue. So you don't really want to do it unless you need to. That would be my advice on high-speed sync, but that's how that works. So if you're walking around going, I have high-speed sync, I just use it all the time because I feel like it, that's fine. But just know that you're not saving any power and you're probably not going to be as color accurate. And this depends on brand, it depends on a lot of things. So I'm being very general here. So just keep that in mind. It's a cool feature when you need it. But it's limited, right? People, like pretty famously, Joe McNally were using high-speed sync before everything kind of did it. And what they would have to do to shoot in the desert is use like a bunch of flashes. They have a tree of small flashes, because that's really all you had with the high-speed sync. Yeah, and super close to people, and that's how they pulled it off. And it's awesome when you need it, and it can create these shots that are very cool. But do I need it in the studio in here? Absolutely not. There'd be no reason for me to do it. I guess if I wanted to shoot at f4, but do I really need to shoot at f4? I mean, I'm already cool enough.
You got enough sauce.
Yeah, you know, my images are soft because I can't focus the camera, not because I'm shooting wide open. But anyways, let's do it. All right, so where was I? Oh, that's small flash. We're only doing small flash. So let's get to a big flash. Well, medium sized. Uh-oh. Rabbit holes. This is the Profoto B10. This is 9 better than?
The A1.
No, B1.
Or the B1.
That's right.
That's B1.
There is a B1, of course. All right, so, boom. We're going to call this big flash for the sense of, because I'm pretty sure I copied that from Joe. This used to be called studio flash. I mean, it's a battery-powered flash. You can take it anywhere. This is why you don't necessarily need to go with 20 speed lights outside anymore, because now you have power. We're going to talk about power now. Usually flashes are going to give you a couple of different power ways to measure them, right? One of them is watt seconds. That's the one we see the most. The other one is a guide number. I'll do guide number first because that's the simplest. A guide number is basically the actual output. So it usually will give you an f-stop at a distance. So this might say f/5.6 at 3 meters, right? That's the power of the light. If you go half that distance, then you'll be another stop brighter, right? If you half the distance, it gets brighter, inverse square, blah, blah. But you can figure out the exact exposure using a guide number. Watt seconds has more to do with the capacity of the light to hold power. It's not an actual output number, and it's most usually useful when you're comparing stuff that are similar. So if I have this light with a 250 watt second, and then I have a similar light by the same company that does 500, that will probably be one stop brighter. This is not always exactly the case. So it's a good range, because people are always like, how many watt seconds should I have? It'll give you an idea. Somewhere around 250, 500 is a good space for a studio light, but brands make a big difference. So just keep that in mind. When you're getting your lights, this one is just like this in the sense that I have TTL and everything, but what's the advantage? It's more powerful. This one is 75, I think technically 76 watt seconds, right? Again, same brand. So relatively speaking, this one's like the equivalent of like 3 of these is like 1 of these or something like that if I did my math right there. Which means that I can either get more power out of this, which is useful for putting it in bigger modifiers, right? Or I can turn it down lower for the same power and shoot faster. Because flash, unlike constant light, needs to recycle. Meaning that every time I shoot the flash, you see it pop, boop, you gotta wait until it's ready again. If you're not shooting at full power and you're using a decent sized flash, it's usually not very long these days, but man, back in the day, I mean, I remember having Norman packs that took 6, 7, 8 seconds to recycle. So nowadays with like flashes that recycle in 2 seconds or less, it's pretty fast. You can shoot fast. Marissa shoots fast all the time. So that's great. It's usually not holding you back, but that is something to consider when you're getting your flashes. Are you somebody that shoots really fast? Do you want to shoot pop, 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 pop? Make sure you have more power. More power allows you to shoot fast, allows you to use bigger modifiers. Also, within this system anyways,
more power rated, not crank the light more power. If you want to shoot faster.
Right, it gives you both things, one or the other. More power meaning more watt seconds, means you can either shoot faster by turning it down or put it in a bigger modifier. Let me be more clear. Thank you.
You got a lot of that.
Yeah, I got, you know, sorry.
There's also,
I'm talking fast, I know, I get it.
there's also a question, why don't you use lumens if it's about power?
Okay, because lumens,
That's repeating.
why don't we use lumens? Lumens are similar, right, in a sense to the guide number. It's rated the same way, right? It's kind of like the lumens are an amount of light at a distance. You can translate that to f-stops and stuff if you do enough like looking around at conversion tables and stuff and using EV, which I don't even want to get into, but EV's exposure value, it is possible. It's just not rated the same because it's a different kind of system. And here's what's important. Because this is one of the things I didn't mention, which is really one of the most powerful things about flash. Assuming that your flash is set at a high enough power that none of the light in the space is affecting your shot, no matter what you set your shutter speed to, assuming that it's within the sync range, the flash duration, that is how long the flash is active for, how long it's firing for, is your shutter speed, right? Which means that if I have my camera set at 3 seconds and it is absolutely pitch black in here, and I have this thing turned down, it has a flash duration of 5,000th of a second, and I only expose with that, my shutter speed is a 5,000th of a second for all intents and purposes. This is how we stop action. We dim down the studio, we overpower the light with our flashes, and we can get these tremendous speeds. If you were to set your camera at its fastest shutter speed, 8,000th of a second, 12,000, whatever they are, it would take a tremendous amount of ambient or studio light, constant light, to get a proper exposure. This is the power of flash. It's all about power and stopping. Okay? Watch your flash durations. There are tons of flashes out there that when you start turning them up really high, the flash duration is actually sometimes slower than your sync speed. So keep that in mind. If you are eliminating all the light in the space, your flash duration is your shutter speed.
Is there a maximum of flash power you should use?
Is there a maximum amount of flash power? No, but you pay for it, right? So if I don't need 1,000 watt second head because I'm not doing huge softboxes or shooting really fast or any of the reasons you might want that, then why spend the money? For me, for the work I do, I like these 250s. I can have multiples of them for the price of a single 1,000, put them where I want. It gives me versatility, which is another reason why some people like the small flashes. Generally speaking, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, you're paying more for the watt seconds, right? Seth has the big guns. I just use the little guns. All right, so, which is why, I mean, if you notice, I put this flash in this little box, because for me, a speed light, which is 75 watt seconds, is perfect for like little boxes, right? I don't need to fill the whole box with power, so I don't need a whole lot of power, and that's why it's perfect. Also, and this is not true of all systems, but specific to Profoto at least, this small flash can act as a transmitter, which means that I can have this on top of my camera and fire my other flashes, which is super useful, which we're going to talk about transmitters now. Yeah. This is not something that you see in every flash system. I'm not going to say that other ones don't have it because I don't know every flash system, but if you have a flash system that has it, awesome. When you want to fire your flash, you need to communicate with the flash that your camera's shooting so that it can sync, right? That's why it's called sync. Not like kitchen sink, but sync like in sync. Girl, you know, no, was that Backstreet Boys?
Oh yeah.
I don't know any NSYNC songs. Okay, so I don't know. Wasn't that the airplane, right? Okay, anyways, we need to sync with the flash. How do we do it? Back in the day, you had a cable that ran to it. I know, very old-fashioned. Everybody's wireless these days. It's nice to have the cable if you need it, but basically you would have what was called a sync cord. It would attach to your camera. It would run out to the flash. When you fire your camera, magic happens, boom, flash fires. Now we use typically remotes. This is a Profoto remote. This happens to be the TTL remote. There's also one that's not TTL for when you don't want to have TTL. You can turn this into manual as well, obviously. This is going to sit onto the shoe of my camera where a flash goes, right? And when I fire the camera, it is going to use its radio signal to communicate with the flash, say fire, do all the different math to do the TTL, and boom, give us a proper exposure, in theory. So put this on top. Typically, not every brand, because I believe Westcott has one that's kind of universal, but most brands will have a specific receiver, or I should say transmitter unit for a brand, because most brands have different types of hot shoes on top. This shoe on top of your camera is called a hot shoe because it is
Hot.
hot. Exactly. All right, unlike a cold shoe, which is
Cool.
cold. Exactly. All right.
I could totally be in the raffles up, but
It's pretty good. She's got it so far, right? She's got the hot and the cold. All right, so here we are. I'm going to take this flash. It is in my group A, because obviously you need to, the remote needs to know what the flash is. So I put it on the same channel. I set the group, which is A. There's 3 groups in this system that you can do TTL with. I'm gonna move it in. I'm gonna go slightly higher, as I said I usually do. I'm gonna use a C stand for a small flash because that's the way I roll. All right, so this is all set now. I am at 5.6, 1/200th of a second, 100 ISO. If you remember, that gives us a dark frame. We're gonna look, we're gonna take a picture, and we're gonna see what happens. Nothing happened because I don't know why. That was anticlimactic. No matter how many times you do this, if you're doing it live, something will always not fire. Okay, first curtain, channel 3, A.
You're using the TTL remote, right?
Yep.
They're asking for it.
I'm using the TTL remote right now. Let me make sure all my settings are the same. We need to make sure this is all the same. Air group A, channel 3, air is on, Bluetooth is off, head is on, syncing first. Zoom manual. All right, so I'm going to do the thing that you do, which is we're going to turn it off and then turn it back on again. There we go. All right. Listen, these days, cameras and stuff, they are computers. And what do we do when a computer doesn't work? Turn it off and we turn it back on again. All right, so here we go. Boom, we make a shot. Again, using TTL. Now we've got, at those same settings, we're in a softbox. We've got beautiful, crisp light across Marissa, which looks much nicer than this. And if you don't think so, well, then I'm not sure what to say about you. I mean, neither, yeah. So now we have some ability to shape our light, right? Because we can put it wherever we want. And using TTL, now again, those other systems would work. The guessing system, using the light meter, all that works. But why not use TTL if we can? We can position this wherever we want. So if we want to do a nice kind of beauty shot, for instance, we can take our small flash. Because I know that you guys like Rembrandt lighting. But I have sworn a pact never to Rembrandt light.
Never used the most overused light ever.
So I'm going to go with a butterfly because I like butterflies. So basically we're going to do what's called butterfly lighting because people feel like they need to name everything. I'm going to move this in front. When you're using a C-stand, you always want to put the weight over the long leg. We want to use a sandbag if at all possible. If not, then make sure you're not being filmed. All right, we raise this up. And again, when you're lighting somebody, the trick really is to get the light as close as you possibly can without putting it in the frame. That's going to make the light big, and big light is soft light, and soft light is generally the acceptable portrait light for most people. For some reason, Marissa got shorter. Okay. There we go. I almost had the top of her head in that shot. We do not want that.
Oh no.
Yeah, here we go. Boom. Again, TTL, I'm moving the flash, right? We can now create what is effectively a nice beauty light, nice and crispy, with our small flash. Boom. Just like that. Now, if we want to use multiple flashes, because the more light you use, the more you get paid. So we can do that. We can take I have another one of these Profoto. Go ahead.
Does output of TTL relate to the camera's meeting mode? Is it better spot meter or using TTL?
Oh, that's a good question. So does TTL relate to the camera's metering modes? Is it better to use spot meter? Yes, it does. I tend to use matrix metering. A lot of people like to use spot metering, including
The
Seth.
camera's metering system.
But it depends on your camera. If you are used to using your camera, think about how you would normally light somebody if you were using constant light or a regular light, and use that mode. If you start shooting TTL and you're not getting a good exposure, you could try changing your metering mode. You could also make adjustments. So generally speaking, I use matrix in the Nikon. I think they do a great job. 3D color matrix.
Well, their matrix.
Keanu Reeves.
The matrix is geared to recognize a face and prioritize it.
Right, because it has face priority. If you're using a camera that has a different kind of a system, then spot might be best for you. Just keep in mind that your meter is trying to make something 18% gray, which means that if somebody is not 18% gray and you spot meter their face, then they might end up either dark or light based on that, and you'll have to make adjustments. This takes into account the red shirt because it's 3D color Keanu Reeves matrixing.
Those are sort of words.
I said words. All right, so I'm gonna do a hair light because, you know, photographers, you know, we all think we're cool. I mean, some of us know it, like Seth, but I think I'm cool. And we're like, we just need to use one light because one light is cool and there's only one sun. But if you watch enough movies, you know that no matter what's going on in a movie, everybody has a backlight. So since I'm all about the movies, did I say I watched a movie with, it was like a Western the other day? It was good. All right, so I've got my B light. All right, so now I've got two lights going on. So this one's in my A group. I'm gonna actually, from my remote, I can actually turn it off. And then my other light here is the B light. You can see that firing. And I'm gonna do what is effectively a hair light. Now I'm gonna use TTL. This is the area where TTL can sometimes be confused. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna take a shot and we're gonna hope for the best. It's not like, you know, I'm standing in front of, you know, in the studio with a bunch of people watching me. So, okay, yeah, that's terrible, right? So here we are, right? Just like if you were standing in your house and there was light blasting through the window behind your subject and you tried to meter it, it would probably not be right? Because it doesn't know what you want it to look like. So now, I'm gonna look at this. Here's where maybe spot metering would have been nice, right? No, it wouldn't have. Here's where a light meter would be useful though, because I could take a light meter and meter the light directly, right? So I've got a lot of options here. The option I'm gonna choose is just to look at this and go, you know what? It's too bright. Let me grab my exposure slider because I'm in capture one like a boss. I'm gonna move it down. Again, I'm only caring about the hair light at this point. I think about right there is a good place. That's about almost 2 stops dark, or it was 2 stops overexposed. Now I'm gonna switch to manual because from the controller, I can move my light into a manual mode. So I'm in the B group, I'm gonna hit manual. I'm gonna take my light down 2 stops to start with. And we're gonna take another shot again. This is still just a backlight. Boom, I'm gonna take away the zoom. All right, that's pretty good, I think. You want it to be somewhat subtle. We'll adjust it once we get the light turned on. Now I'm going to my A light. This is a mistake that sometimes people make, including myself when I'm doing this live. You don't want to switch back to TTL at this point because it's going to screw everything up. But remember, our A light is already set. It looks good. So that's where it was. We're totally fine. We turn the A light on, and we should be pretty decent, and then we'll make some final tweaks. Because when you're using multiple lights, you're going to want to do, yeah, that's pretty good, right? We've got a subtle hair light. We've got a beautiful light on her face.
And you got a C-stand in the shot.
And we have a C-stand in the shot, just like always, you know.
To brag about your wealth.
Right, we want to show off all the C-stands we have. This one's actually, it's Seth's with Brett's pole on it, arm. And of course, what's nice about this is this is two-tone. I think when I bought my car, they charged me extra for the rims because they were silver and black. They're like, this is the checkerboard. I'm like, can I just have tires? Like, what? They're rims, or so I was told. There we go. Okay, no C-stand on the shot. Nice little separation light. It's subtle. She looks decent, as usual. If we want it to be brighter now, like, let's say you're like, no, man, that's not bright enough. I want glamour. Well, go to my B light. I'll turn it up a stop. That's going to double the amount of light, right? 1 stop is double. She's going to be like, ba-ba. Bam, she's glamorous. Yep, that's about as glamorous as Marissa gets. You've reached the peak of glamour right there.
Glamour.
All right.
Real lost your phone.
Oh, so
All right, so let's say now, we're doing pretty good actually. That's cool. We're syncing our lights up, we're using manual, we're using TTL, we're getting them in place however we want. Let's now, although I don't even know if I can bother, I'll go to high-speed sync just because I can. Let's say that you're like one of these guys that does like YouTube videos, you know, and you got long hair and a hat, and you got Marissa, you know, and here you are, you're like, oh, you know, high-speed sync. So I don't even know if this, I'm probably going to have to ask Seth how to do it. So, all right, so, no, I'm already there. Okay, my camera is already set up for it. I know that in the Canon camera, you've got to turn your remote to high-speed sync. In the Nikon, it just does it. Yeah, inset in the camera. I'm going to go to 1,000th of a second. And because I'm cool, I'm going to go to f4 because, you know, and we're going to take a picture. Now, again, I am cranking this thing 2 stops roughly over the sync speed you normally is, which means the flash is going to be abused here, and it's going to put a lot of, it's set at 7.5 right now. Let's see. Oh, nothing's going to happen because I didn't put it back in TTL. Bam. I'm back in TTL. We'll cut that part out in editing. All right, here we go. Bam. If we look at the flash, it went to 10. This one goes to 10, right? So just to show you how glamorous she is, it's still a smidge dark, which means that at 1,000th of a second, even though I opened up a stop, we're basically looking at an idea that, oh.
There's high-speed sync boost. Do you have that on?
Oh, is there a high-speed sync boost? This one also has high-speed sync boost. Let's boost that high-speed sync.
It's on.
It's on. It boosted. But anyways, I wanted to do that to show you because a lot of times when I say the high-speed sync eats up power, it doesn't. I get somebody that says, no, it doesn't, Daniel. The proof is in the pudding, as they say. And we put it.
this is the pudding.
Yeah, chocolate pudding. Now, if I like this and I'm like, man, I love this shot. I love high-speed sync because I'm at 1,000th of a second. I'm really cool. I can also be like, you know what? Those old guys, they're all shooting at 100 ISO. We don't need to shoot at 100 ISO. We could shoot it. Man, I don't need low ISOs. I'm going to shoot at 800 ISO because somebody told me that was the base ISO of the Red camera. Boom. Now we're getting 7.3 here, right? But look what else we're getting. Light all over the wall, right? Because now we're starting to bring light in from the room, even with that shutter speed, and basically it's just all spreading out everywhere. So again, it's all about balance in life. Just like in The Karate Kid, where he stood on the little thing, yep, exactly, and it's about balance, right? That's what we're looking for here. We got to think about it. We can use it to our advantage. Hey, let's make a colored background because we can't get through a single demo without having a blue background. So
We need more lights, more money.
we need more lights, more money. We're going to turn on the rainbow ring light. I'm going to switch to hue saturation, and I'm going to turn it up to blue. So that looks blue to me. 193s looks blue enough. I'm going to put this over here. This is the part of the demo where it's like, let's hope this all works. All right, so we're going to move this to blue. We're going to kill the overhead lights. All right. Now, we've got a bluish background. I've got a Marissa. I think we got a bit of a hot spot there, but that's okay. Oh, wow, that's weirdly eerie. I like it. I'm going to change up my settings again because, again, I want to compensate for that. Number one, I'm going to get rid of the B light in the back because ain't nobody got time for that. I'm going to bring my A light over here. I'm going to drop my shutter speed back down because I'm going to need it, remember? I'm going to go to f4. I'm going to go back to 100 ISO. And I'm going to look through the camera without the flash turned on. So I'll talk about that in 1 second because I think I forgot to. I'm going to look through this and I'm going to try to compensate to get enough shutter speed to get the background blue. Now, here's the thing, guys. When you put a flash on top of your camera, in most of these mirrorless cameras, it is going to show you the light. Oh, does the model light on there?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I'll turn it up. It's fine. Okay, it's good. That's why she looks so good. It's going to show you the light. It's going to show you because, like, if I'm in a dark space, like I was showing before, and there was no exposure, it just looks black, right? But with the flash on, it gives you that kind of false impression, so you can see what you're doing. Because people ask me all the time, they're like, "But Daniel, if I'm shooting so it's a black frame, like how in the world do I focus?" Well, first of all, focus is overrated. We all know that. But let's assume that you like things in focus. This is how you do it, right? We can see. If I press this button here, it basically tells the camera that there's no flash on it, and we can see what we're getting for an exposure. Now, I'm going to just quickly turn off the A-Light's modeling light so that we can see what we're actually getting. She's mostly a silhouette. I mean, she's getting a little bit of light on her, but we can see the background's blue. So now, if I'm using TTL on this front light, some of the light's probably going to hit the background, so we're going to have to make a quick adjustment, but let's just make a shot, because if I don't shoot once every, 3 or 4 seconds, I don't get paid. All right, so close that. Oh, I am not going to do anything else. Actually, it's pretty good. No, I mean, this light's hit the background a little bit, so let's do a little tilty tilt. Boop, like that. Let's go like this. We got this. You can't do one of these without finishing with a blue background.
Yeah, you can. You just finish it.
Listen, if Gavin gets to do his red background, I want my blue background.
How am I going to do it?
Purple. All right, here we go. Bam. Now, TTL is adjusted. Everything looks good, right? I am shooting at, you may notice down here, 1/8 of a second. And the reason why I'm doing that is because there's not a whole lot of ambient light really hitting Marissa here. So as long as she's relatively still, we should be fine. And we can get a blur if we want. But I'm not very good at that, so. Look, there he is, nice and sharp. Kind of shallow depth of field because I'm at f4, so I'm pretty cool, right? Blue background from the rainbow ring light. I'm using color LEDs. I think I am pretty cool, actually.
I think you might be cool.
All right, let's see what happens if you do like a.
Do like a.
Yeah, like whoosh, there we go. Boom. Now I'm very cool.
Oh, okay. We can do it.
Well, that's an album cover.
Yeah, there we go. I shot something like that when I was in college. All right, so this is where, I'm gonna do one final thing because I know people, oh, can you do? Yeah, I can.
Do what?
I'm gonna go to rear curtain sync.
Why?
Because I feel like it. I think I'm in rear curtain sync. No, I'll do first curtain first. When the flash fires, I want you to move.
Okay.
Okay, do your thing after the flash fires. Here we go.
The hair thing?
Yep, here we go, and boom. Oh, nope, you moved before it fired.
Oh, whoops.
Oh, well, you look at me. Look at me like in a cool way, and then we're not. And you gotta be fast, because we're only 1/8 of a second. We're not gonna mess around with this. Okay, here we go, and good. No, too short. Okay. There's not nearly enough light in here to do what I want to do. How much power is in that flash right now? All right.
You're at 7.
I'm at 7.
9 or 8.
I'm at 8, so that only gives me one more stop, so I'm not gonna be able to do anything. Because I have to go 5, 6.
What do you want to do? Just get her hair blurred in the freezer?
Yeah. I'll go 5, 6, and I'll go a quarter.
Have her stay stagnant and kick her hair with her hands.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Thank you. All right, here we go. And 1, 2, 3.
You gotta be faster, kid.
Oh,
Like, as
faster?
soon as
Yeah.
that flash hits.
As soon as I say 3, you got to
So
go.
do it on 3. Okay.
Yep. Oh yeah. Right. Okay. Right. Hold on. Get yourself ready. Okay. Focusing. 1, 2, 3. Oh, not bad. Not a great shot, but at least it shows the technique. We've got her face more or less frozen, and we got a little glow.
You want to rear sync and have her flip in place?
Yeah, I thought that would be easier,
You want
but
this left way?
yeah, I think I can put it in the eye menu. So here I'm going to use rear curtain sync. I kind of just wanted to show rear curtain sync.
It's got Daniel sweat all over it. Oof.
I stand in the light. I really want to just do rear curtain sync. So rear curtain sync means that the camera shutter will fire, and then right before it closes,
3, 2, go for it.
it will fire, right? So what happens is it's frozen at the end. Okay, so the camera.
Eye in the middle of that? That's nuts.
No, you got it. You know that.
Who thought Nikons could focus? Who knew?
Who knew? So basically, what rear curtain sync is that the shutter opens, starts drinking in that exposure. I drink your exposure. Then the flash fires at the end. So let's try it one more time. Let me pre-focus.
Same thing.
Yep, and then down. Yep, and go. Nope.
Too fast, too slow.
Now you may have seen, oh,
Now that's cool.
weird.
It's like a horror film.
One more time. You may have seen before, I was trying to do too many things at once. Okay, and, oops, sorry.
That's called out of sync for everyone.
We're just gonna cut that part out in the edit. Okay, hold on.
Cause it's like
Here we go, and go. Okay. So this is why Seth is so much better at this than I am. See how he nailed it in the first shot? So let's,
Let me do it. Put your head
I don't know.
Yep.
So basically what's happening is the shutter is opening, and then, yeah, see,
Oh, hey, there you go.
this is his specialty. So
That's actually pretty cool.
yeah, this kid's pretty good. It's like he's done it before.
Got a career.
Anyway, you got the career in this. So anyways, the point being is that you can use the rear curtain sync to do it this way, where basically the shutter's open and then it fires at the end. People always ask me which one's better. It really just depends on what you're doing. And I tend to say just try whichever one's which. The reason why I was doing it here is I thought it was easier for her to catch it. Clearly it wasn't easier for me, but what I wanted to point out was, I'll just do a shot. You see how there's a no, I just did a shot. You did a,
Damn.
well, there you go. I got the. So, just watch the flash for a second. You see how there was a pre-flash?
Yeah.
That is how TTL works. You don't normally see it because you don't normally have a really long exposure. But with a long exposure, you see that. That's effectively the flash going, what's the exposure? And then, that's what it is. That's how pre-flash works. Let's try one more time so that I can feel like I've.
With the down.
Yep. Go. Nope.
It is too slow.
Okay, we gotta be fast. Go. Closer. Okay.
I like when your hair's all the way forward. It looks really
Yeah. It's creepy, but this is kind of fun stuff. The longer the exposure, that's pretty good that it grabs the exposure. That grabs the. But you see how tight that is?
That's fast. I can't believe
Yeah.
it's doing that.
So that's basically how that works. So that's your kind of long exposure, mixing the flash, that kind of stuff, sync speed. Keep in mind that all of this stuff, like we get into it at the end where we're starting to mess around, this is just kind of fun stuff you can do with the flash. There are shots where this could be really useful, but in and of itself, it's just technique, right? If you have a shot that requires some kind of a blur because that will add some action to it, somebody's doing sports, they're laughing, musicians, things like that, you're gonna see these kind of shots. You can even do stuff where you're holding the camera and you move, right? That can really be ways to kind of play around and understand how the flash sync works. But the important thing to remember is that even though I'm shooting at a quarter of a second, when the flash fires, effectively any part of the image that did not get constant light on it, so it was basically not exposed, is exposed at the flash duration, which is, I don't know what it is. With this flash, it's probably like around 1,000th of a second. So it's stopped at this power. So it's stopping the action. And that's really the power of flash. Control to do what you really want to do to create the images you want. So if you have any other questions or you're watching this after the fact, put them in the comments below and I'll check them. Next week, Gavin Hoey will be here, but 2 p.m. Eastern. He's going to do noir. I saw that in the thing. So that's like, I'm assuming some kind of light across the face noir thing. That'll be really fun.
old Hollywood black and white.
Old Hollywood black and white. He's going to probably have a hat. We're going to get Seth in here eventually doing some demos, and I'll be back in 2 weeks. It's not next week, but the following week I'll be back, and we're going to do something which I did not write down what I did, but I wrote down Gavin's. I think that's right.
New schedule. I'm so screwed up. Yeah.
Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so you get the notifications, but generally on Thursdays we're going to be trying to be more often live. So if you love these live streams and you like this kind of stuff, hang around. It's super cool. Good to go. Marissa is marissa.roper. I am Daniel Norton, photographer.
Follow your own channel.
Follow my channel, Daniel Norton Photographer. Seth's his last ex-witness on all the socials because nobody else had that. Can you believe it?
Thanks, boss.
I'm different on every social because people have my name. So, and anyways, thanks for watching, guys. We will see you in 2 weeks or 1 week if you, Gavin will see you, I guess.